Hello, and welcome to Medical Coding Piece by Piece with Dorisa Claybrook. So we're going to go over integumentary coding. Now, what I want to do is I want to share with you some faster, quicker ways to review codes when you have them set up as multiple choice. Being an instructor myself, I set up multiple choice questions all the time for my students. So it does take some getting used to how to identify things. And that's what I want to share with you today so that you will be faster at your exam, not be so stressed out over that 5 hour exam and over just a little over 2 minutes a question. So with looking at these coding scenarios from a different view, I'm going to go ahead and give you the rationale behind the code selection that I choose, but also how I arrive there. Hopefully you will find my teaching style to be something that is very helpful and useful for yourself. So let's go forward. Okay, the first case scenario in the integumentary system that I wanted to share with you is of a patient named Michael, an established patient. That right there gives me a very big indication that when they're telling me that, there's typically going to be an evaluation and management code that you will need to select. Now let's go ahead and read the rest of the case scenario because we don't really want to jump to any conclusions. But as you can see, I've already spotted the established patient and I've underlined the physician performs a problem-focused history and a problem-focused exam. Now, instead of just going straight to the answers, I always read the question, try to read it thoroughly. So hopefully your reading speed is, and your comprehension speed is where it needs to be with reading and comprehending these type of questions. So he is seen today for evacuation of a hematoma of his left index finger sustained while hanging a picture. The physician performs a problem-focused history and a problem-focused exam to evaluate the extent of the damage and determine the evacuation of the hematoma and if it is needed. He then goes ahead and evacuates the hematoma. So now we need to look at ICD-10, your diagnosis coding, and also your CPT coding books. So here I have already I want you to look at several things that stick out to me. Number one is that we need to have an evaluation and management code. So as you can see, we can go ahead and mark off two, I'm sorry, two, not that one, because it does have the 99212. And now we also want to mark through this one because it doesn't have it either. Okay, now what I'm looking at next is, yes, you can spend all of your time looking up S60.112 and the 121, the 122. There's three different codes. They'll be right in the same area. But some things that stick out to me that as long as you know your coding rules and your coding book, in this section of your S codes under your injuries, you're going to need to pick up that seventh character of an A or some type of a seventh character. And when you look in your coding book and you look up that actual code of 122A, it will tell you, yes, you do need a seventh character, and the seven characters are under the S60, and they can be an A for initial encounter, a D for subsequent encounter, or an S for sequela. So this is the initial encounter for this man here. So that's why the A stands out more. The others do not have that. So coding rule is to always make sure you have the number of characters. And another coding rule that we have for CPT is when there is more than one uh, CPT code, you have modifiers in the front of your book, and modifier 25 means that it's significant. separately identifiable evaluation and management service by the same physician or other qualified healthcare professional. So we're going to need that as well. So with knowing those two things, it automatically led my eye to go with C. So C would be the correct answer. So as you can see, it saved me a lot of time just knowing that I'm needing an A and I'm needing a 25 on a case scenario like this. So little tricks that really some of the programs just are not going into detail on how to go over those. So the next one is Susan underwent removal of 20 skin tags on her neck with the use of ligature strangulation and cauterization. So again, select the appropriate ICD-10 code and CPT code. Now, knowing my book like I do, I know to stay away from things that are not very specific or unspecified. And that is your 9 codes. 9 codes, I try to stay away from them unless I just can't find anything better. So that's why I went ahead and marked that in red. So with that being said, my only other two, there's only L91.8 and L91.9, and then there's only 2 options when it comes to CPT codes, the 11200 and the 11201. Well, when you go to your book in the 11,000 series, 11200, 11200 leads you to a code of removal of skin tags. That's exactly what we're doing here. This one happens to be removal of 20 skin tags. So when you read a little further under 11200, it says removal of skin tags, and it goes up to and including 15 lesions. Well, in this case scenario, we know there's 20. So why didn't we just go with 20? Well, this is when it's very important. Most CPT experts just do not stop right there when they find the code. They skim that area. CPT is not very user-friendly when it comes to going through the index and then to your tabular. It's a great idea to start getting in the habit of skimming the area. And so in my case, it's 1 page over. It's the 11201 code. And that has a plus sign next to it, meaning that it's an add-on code. So I know in this case scenario that I can pick up 15 skin tags with the 11200 code, but I still have 5 more. So why am I not looking at the times 5 on the 201? Well, when you read under 11201, it will say each additional 10 lesions or tags or part thereof. So with that wording of part thereof, that means I don't have to have exactly 10. I can have 9 or 8 or 7 or 6 or 5 or 4. It just says each additional 10 lesions or part thereof. So I now know that I do not have to say it this way. So I can go ahead and mark through that. I also know that I don't have to go with an unspecified code for the 9. And we also know that there's an add-on code. So it's not just 11200 times 20 because that only includes 15. So we know that it's not that code either. So that leaves me to select, again, the answer is number 3. So that should be your correct answer for that. I hope this helps you to understand and maybe helps you think of medical coding a little bit differently and look at your modifiers, look at your placement, placeholders for each one of your digits, and know how to skim and read very quickly. So do not spend so much time on the story itself, but looking at your answers. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to look up each individual code. If you were to do that during the CPT test, you would definitely not have enough time. So you have to train the eye to look for what is important, but more importantly, you have to know your medical terminology, your anatomy and your physiology, number 1. Number 2, you have to know your books And number three, you have to know how to use those guidelines. So if there's a guideline that shares with you how to use a modifier or how to use a different placement or any type of guideline that might be in the very front of your ICD-10 book, you need to know how to use those and use those correctly. I hope that you found that my style of teaching meets your need, and I hope to hear from you, and I will be doing more of these. So I look forward to seeing you soon and sharing with you piece by piece. Bye.